Sustainability has moved into our social conscience, and what's great about that is we're beginning to realize that sustainability and taking care of our environment is an important part of our lives.
So a lot of people ask, why is it important to consider sustainability in your landscape designs? And the main reason that I think is really important to keep in mind is that we want to be able to contribute to a healthy environment and have a place that's beautiful for our future generations.
For instance, if you're planting with locally, regionally native plants, the landscape can still function ecologically, aesthetically and recreationally without having continual inputs or continual waste products coming out of it. It's sustainable in terms of the long term, that it will do no harm.
If you go to a local nursery or a big chain nursery, see plants that you think are just beautiful and you don't really understand their ecology or where they're from, a lot of the time those plants are brought in from other parts of the country and they aren't necessarily adapted to the conditions that we have here.
You've got plants here which know about what it is to deal with the storm event. The plants in this part of the world know what it is to have 3 months of drought.
So one of the advantages for using appropriate plants for your landscape, native species that are adapted to our region, is you can reduce the amount of pesticides that you need to use. Pesticides can be problematic for a number of reasons.
They get washed away by rain, they get carried off, and unfortunately what we're seeing with that is fertilizers and pesticides moving into our streams and into our wildlife.
Many people are surprised when I tell them that here in the Wildflower Center gardens we very rarely use fertilizers. In most of the established beds we don't use fertilizers at all, and the plants are just ready to bloom and do their thing whenever they're ready.
The Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center was founded by Miss Johnson and Helen Hayes, and the purpose of the Wildflower Center is to give recognition to native plants. We're one of the few all-native plant botanical gardens in the country, and there's over 5,000 species in the state of Texas, so you ought to be able to come here and find something that you like.
Texas has a lot of wonderful plants. Here we have, for example, our native Mustang grape. A lot of people use them to make preserves or wine. They're really tasty. They have that real classic grape flavor. This is an agave havardiana from West Texas. It's a wonderful texture against the feathergrass and other plants in the garden. Very xeric, very drought resistant. Of course, people really want to see our Texas bluebonnets, which are endemic to our state, which means that they only occur in Texas. And the yellow flowers that we have here are one of our native ranunculuses, or buttercup. They're very fragrant, and too bad you can't smell it.
My personal favorites this time of year, of course, the flowering trees, the redbud and the Mexican plum. You know, they're beautiful, you just can't beat them.
I'm from Britain, I like formal gardens, so when I grow bluebonnets, I grow them in straight lines, just because I like order and formality in my garden.
Here we have our native buffalo grass, which is a really good alternative to some of the more traditional lawn grasses that are very water requiring. If you want, you can mow it throughout the year. Some people like to leave it, get a little bit taller, and have this nice flowing feeling to it. When the wind blows through, you see the ripples of the grass. And these are things that grow without extra fertilizers or extra water.
Generally speaking, water is becoming more and more of an expensive resource. And it may be expensive because of the treatment that it goes through, or simply because it's hard to get. Lots of parts of the United States, we don't really have adequate water in any one place. It has to be shipped. And all those things together cost money.
Water is cheap now, but I don't think it's going to be cheap forever. As it gets more scarce, it's going to become more and more expensive.
Water resources are very much under pressure right now with the increasing population, and so much of that water is being put on landscapes, and in particularly on lawns. One of the ways to reduce the water requirements and also the amount of herbicide you might need is to use mulch. Here we have a recycled glass mulch. It's been tumbled so it's not really sharp, and at night it's beautiful. It sparkles in the moonlight.
Also, you may have access to runoff water, say from the roof, from rainwater harvesting, or from air conditioning condensate.
AC condensate is the water produced by buildings from the air conditioner units that normally goes into storm drains.
That's wastewater, and if you actually use it to put on your landscape, then that system becomes more productive.
So I'm standing here in front of our water cistern, which we call the tower. It's a very iconic part of the architecture here at the Wildflower Center. And it's actually a storage tank for water that we collect off of the roofs of surrounding buildings.
Gray water is another example. It's water that comes out of sinks and bathtubs, but we're now looking at systems to clean the water and again reuse it on the landscape so that we no longer have to use potable water or drinking water to irrigate our lawns. Everything from carpet manufacturers like Milliken to irrigation technologies like Toro and Rainbird are all thinking about sustainability and are producing products that make your designs and your landscapes, your buildings more sustainable.
You can use lumber instead of concrete. You can use lumber which comes from nearby, so there's lower transportation costs.
Also, by looking at renewable energy that can be created locally and used on site, millions of dollars can be saved. Austin has a great energy program, I think one of the best in the country, where you can actually purchase renewable energy credits, which is awesome.
Now, carbon dioxide, as you know, is one of the greenhouse gases which is contributing to global warming. So if we can design urban landscapes and plan for them to be what we call carbon neutral, in other words, there's no net release of carbon into the atmosphere. If we can design to do that, that's a good thing, because right now we certainly aren't.
Green roof technology is something that we're testing here at the Wildflower Center, and what we're looking at are green roofs feasible for this part of the country.
Green roofs are really just vegetated roofs. A green roof on top of a house can actually reduce, say, cooling bills of that building because those plants are transpiring and they're cooling. There's also water benefits. By putting a green roof on top of a building and you get a large rainfall event, that green roof, or we get enough of them in a city environment, can actually hold back some of that storm water and even pump some of it back up into the atmosphere. And that's useful in a place like Austin or San Antonio or even Dallas-Fort Worth, where we get these massive flood events. We've installed the first extensive green roof in Austin, and that's owned by Stratus Properties, but it's to some extent the Starbucks coffee house overlooks this green roof, so they get the most benefit. So far that's been a success, so I think that's just the first of many to come here in Austin.
Sustainable Sites Initiative is about improving the health of landscapes, not for this generation, but future generations.
The ways that we can achieve this is by treading lightly on the land or contributing to good, positive changes in the landscape.
Anything from how to do a wildflower meadow, how to preserve a prairie, how to revegetate a roadside, how to green up a roof. We're finding there's answers to all those questions within our very own native flora.
My reason for using native plants really is that there's so many beautiful, wonderful species, and they make Texas look like Texas. To find out more about the activities that we have here at the Wildflower Center, as well as more about the individual plant species, is to look at our website, which is www.wildflower.org.